years ago, probably around 1999. I was studying to be an actor. And through some unique circumstances, I got booked my first ever movie, which got me my side card. It was an HBO movie called Poodle Springs. And as I got the script, I had one word, literally, that was my line. But that line got me my side card. I was nervous. And there backstage, I met some other actors who taught me some of the ins and outs, because I was the first time on stage at an actual film, movie. I didn't know what I was doing, scared. I played Cop 3, and they showed me this hot dog and this bottle of whiskey that I was supposed to bring to the actor that was in jail being framed for murder. The director, Bob Raffleson, was showing me how to walk around the camera and how to get in front of the jail. Bob Raffleson was one of the co-inventors of the Monkees in the 60s, and he also directed Five Easy Pieces with Jack Nicholson. And now he was directing me. He walked me around the camera, showed me how to get to the actor behind that jail cell. And I handed him my bottle of whiskey and hot dog that he asked for, and gave him his change. As we did it, the actor kept saying, speed it up a little bit. But I had done my work. And so I said to him, listen, I just felt like this is a guy that is a beat cop, and he sees you as this private eye who gets all the dames and gets all the girls, and he's finally got you behind bars, and he's got his finger in your hot dog and the mustard and giving you the whiskey, and he feels like he's somebody now. And the actor looked at me and said, oh, okay, good idea. And he let me do it my way. I was on screen for maybe 10 seconds. My first ever movie. And that first ever movie, that first 10 seconds that got me my SAG card, was with the actor, James Caan. Jimmy Caan passed away last week. Here's to you, Godfather actor. Now, here's my question. Did I just make all that crap up? Was that a lie? Or did all that really happen? You want to know the truth? There's only one way to find out. You have to come on inside this Monday night edition of Brad Stine Has Issues. How do you know you're here? 'Cause it sounds just like this. Or like this.
Yeah, whatever.
Kinda ruined it. There it is.
Look.
Listen, my friends.
Okay,
What would Brad Stine be issues with without my son Wyatt Leroy Stine screwing it up?
Okay, listen. If out of all the problems we've had trying to get this thing set up, that is my least concern.
That is his least concern. Son, I don't know how to turn off the volume on this thing. We got all these new crazy thing. Oh, I did. I figured it out. I just figured it
You
out.
didn't know what you have.
See, we got a whole new setup. If you notice, you can see my whole body now. For those who didn't know, I don't have legs. I'm just a torso. So we thought, well, let's.
Oh, that's why you're so short.
That's it. Legless. This is God's comic, Brad Stine, giving you Brad Stine Has Issues, brought to you by Christian Podcast Central, the place to go where you want to podcast centralize everything you've ever cared to know about podcasts in the Christian realm. So go to Christian Podcast Central, press subscribe, and become part of the elite. This is God's comic, Brad Stine. Brad Stine Has Issues, where comedy, conservatism, and Christianity collide in a cacophony of clarity. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, son, this is Wyatt Stine. We've been trying to work out some new glitches and some new material. As you can see my whole body. We got rid of the big old PC. We just put this little thing so I can see who's there, and we got that out of the way. So little by little, we're trying to move into the next phase of podcast where we look like professionals. And then my son screwed up and played my theme song literally 3 seconds before it ended. Wyatt, tell us how you screwed up so bad.
Well, it takes hard work, dedication, and overall commitment.
Yes, it does.
I strive myself in my ability to turn even the most foolproof stage direction and completely mess it up.
See, this is what I love about my son. He doesn't just want to be horrible at producing my show. He wants to be the best horrible producer there can be. Son, I love how you innovate every single podcast to find a new way to screw something up. I love that because so many guys sit there, they get the thing nailed every time, they get me on the proper place, they got me framed just right, they hit the right music from the beginning to the end. These are people that are always on top of things. They're so mundane, they're so rote. Not my son. You're always there to remind me I can screw things up that were unscrewable. That's what I love about you.
It's a gift.
It is a gift. Speaking of gifts, let's go see who is on. If you notice, I got an iPad here so that I can use it, folks. Let's see who showed up tonight.
I mean, I wouldn't say you can use it. You didn't know what the volume button was.
That's true. Okay, let's see if I can find.
Oh,
does it go up
by
as?
the way, just so we're clear, this is one of those new ones that's a touch screen.
Okay, I'm just getting used to this, folks. But who's here? Michael Sean Garrett. Hey, Brad. I hope life is treating you well. Hope life is treating me well. He anthropomorphized the idea of life, Wyatt. What do you think that means about this guy?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm no psychotherapist or anything, but if I had to analyze all the ins and outs of that, I would probably say I would let you know after years of very expensive work.
Ah, you mean therapy?
Yeah, sure, same thing.
Wyatt, let me ask you a question.
Yep.
Karen Boyd's here. She said, you look like you're at the big kids table now. Isn't that sweet? Instead of the card table that we normally eat at when we're just little babies. Hey, Brad, I hope life's treating you well. That was Michael Sean Garrett. We already mentioned that. But guess what Robert E. Riggle said? Way to go, Wyatt. If you're going to mess it up, do it with style. See, people that watch my show come on for two reasons. One, to hear my laughter, my humor, my insight, my wisdom, my ability to take simple issues and make them complicated and take complex issues and make them palatable. And then they come in for phase number two and hopefully even more fun, and that is the wreck that they hope happens at the Indy 500 or a daredevil trying to jump a motorcycle, or, of course, you at the helm of my podcast.
I just want you to remind you once again, I have access to the soundboard, and I do not know what any of those buttons do. I will push one at random if you continue to mock me.
Son, I expect you to place
Finger
things
is on the button.
The reason I expect him to push things at random is it would be
That's my editing style.
It would be an improvement from him actually trying to do it professionally. Wyatt, I got to say hi to some more folks. Brian Oberson, darn lag. I mean, hey, Brad. Louis Leone, hi from Philadelphia, Philly. Kenny Dara, hi, Brad. Sean Siriax here. Jan Laurel Robinson, I'm so happy to catch you live. I don't blame you, Jan. Jan, if I wasn't me, I'd be trying to catch me live. The problem is I'd be on this podcast and my son would be screwing it up. I probably wouldn't be here. You'd probably have a camera shot of me like this. You just see like this part down. Why won't you try that next week? That's a new innovation.
Listen, I can try that now if you want me to. I can turn the camera up.
Son, I'm shocked you haven't.
Well, listen. I have to save something for next time. If I start at 100%, where do I go from there?
You're right. You got to give yourself some room to be even worse.
Room for improvement.
Benjamin Gregory's here. Hey, Benjamin. Karen Boy, she can hear. I hear you fine. Why couldn't you? Tony, see, that's how bad things are in my podcast. Why? Some of the first greetings our people have to say is, I can actually hear you. So I'm just saying, you have set a standard, son, of incompetence that is going to be hard to... Matter of fact, the better you get at this, the more people are going to weep. Because this is what they're looking for. This is the train wreck they come to get on every...
The better I get at this, the harder it is to mess up. And boy, do I like a challenge.
I know, son. I know you can do this. I know you can. Glenn Bloom's here. He's saying hi. Jeff Hopgood, he sent me 200 stars. Let's see, who else is here? Lovisa Greta.
Benjamin Gregory hitting us with basically every single joke of our podcast.
Who did?
Benjamin.
Hey, guess what Nick Kress said? He's going off the tracks. Wyatt, I can't tell because of my newfangled machine. Was Nick first?
Yeah, of course Nick was. What? Did you have to ask?
Because my iPad thing, I can't find where the first one guy is.
I would hit the laugh track button on the soundboard, but I honestly don't know which button that is.
Well, ago.
Should I just try one and hope for the best?
Way to be with us, Saint Nick. Guess who else is here? Roger Riggle says, start pushing buttons, loin boy.
Okay, button pressed. Hope it was the good one.
It was just applause. It was wonderful applause.
Oh, that's
Ron Block
that's
is here. Heber Springs, Arkansas, Sheldon Davis. Good evening, Mr. Stine and White. He spelled our name wrong, White. We're used to that, aren't we? Yeah. Stein, it's Stine. Montana loves you. That's Ruthie Moyer. Ryan DeCosta, blessing you both. Thanks for the fun listening from Florida. Good for you. Hello, Brad and White. Paula Faye Marie Rauchi, my favorite 4 named lady.
Okay, so people have been sending us stars, which are basically like coins.
I love this back and forth of this podcast, Desi Wilhelm.
But it really makes me ask the question.
Yeah.
So you know how those like sites that let you like buy a star and name it?
Yes.
If somebody gave you a star, what would you name it?
I'd name him Ralph.
What? Ralph?
Yeah.
That's it? No puns or clever jokes or metaphors on life? Just Ralph.
Why? There are trillions of stars. And you know what? Of the trillions of stars that exist in this universe.
Uh-huh. Yep.
You know how many have the name Ralph?
I'm going to guess 0.
Now, can you see why I would give him something?
Well, no, because let me ask you this counterpoint. How many stars need to be named Ralph?
The ones that don't have a personal name that they can feel proud of. Son,
I just feel like there's a better name.
Wyatt,
like,
I have to ask you, and I don't like to do this. You're my own son. I don't want to I don't want to cancel you. But are you a Ralphist?
I never knew there was a name for it.
That's the worst. The worst Ralphists are those who don't even realize that it's internal. It's systemic. My son is systemically Ralphist.
I do want to get the audience involved in this, though. Audience.
What are they doing?
Would you name a star if you had one?
Yeah.
Let's see if anyone in our brilliant and super smart audience can beat Ralph.
Hey, Wyatt, Faith Connell's coming to DFW area next month. Faith, bring a bunch of people. Go to your church and tell them we're all taking the entire senior group. We're taking all the singles. We're all going. You can even probably bring your youth group. Folks, we have to fill that place up to show the performance arts centers that conservative Christian comedy is a seller. So I'm asking all my DFW area folks to show up.
If you want to fill the room, just invite Ralph.
Do you know what Dusty Wilhelm said? He said he'd name it Patrick.
Nothing?
And Sally Wicker-Maddox said she'd name her star, ready? Sparkle.
Sparkle. Honestly, that's like Twinkle.
She's so sweet. She's so sweet. Listen, I need to talk to you guys about something today. For those of you who are brand spanking new to Brad Stine Has Issues, I want to say hi. I want to say thank you for showing up. Of course, you came here because you've seen my comedy. I don't think you came here because you're on a work release program, though that is a possibility. I know that there are some people on death row and in the hole that are asked, do you want to stay in the hole or watch one episode of Brad Stine Has Issues? And, of course, they choose
the hole.
The hole.
Why wouldn't you choose the hole? I mean, at least the hole doesn't glitch.
You know what we could call the hole? Sparkle.
I was going to say Ralph.
Yes! See, we always are looking out for you guys, trying to find that callback, that ability to find the funny, no matter where we end up. Son, what is it?
Speaking of which, I actually have, from Jeff Yarza, my new favorite name for a star. Not this star.
Not this star. Okay.
Yep.
So that's kind of esoteric, huh? Odd? Unusual? What do you think, son?
Needs to be workshopped a bit. How about Stein Sight?
Oh, that's
by
sweet.
Tony Kawas.
Hey, look at this. Jeff Hodgood. Facebook gave me the stars for free when I clicked on this link. You have made me laugh many times, so I passed you the stars. And then, okay, Stein. So I had to finish my supper. That's Barb Malima.
John Walter has a really weird name for a star. It just says, hi from Paul's Valley, okay.
Okay. So
that's such a weird name for a star, man. Like, Are you trying to beat the record for most names in one object?
Well, I mean, at least she's participating, son. So many people don't.
You know,
Some of the people are
yeah.
apathetic at star naming, and I find that to be sad.
Like, I don't see Nick Kress's name anywhere.
Nick Kress has one goal, son. What is it?
Be first.
And then what does he do?
Never do anything else.
Kicks
just
back.
Look in the stream. Just
kicks back in his underpants, puts his feet up on his ottoman, crosses them. He's probably got his socks on. I'm picturing those.
And he's just knowing he's the best audience member for being first every time.
That's all he cares about, son. It's all about power for that man. That's Saint Nick. But God bless him, he pulls it off. I got
look, if you had the power to visit every house in one night and deliver presents to the people you think are good enough for it, wouldn't you be a bit boastful?
I would. But don't they have a clause for that?
I'll give you that one.
Okay, well, anyways, Brad Stine Has Issues is, as I already mentioned, a place where comedy, conservatism, and Christianity collide in cacophony of clarity. That's all I have. That's what I want to give you. I'm out and just got back. I was at the Lincoln dinner for the local Republicans. Where? In Trinidad, Colorado. I was there on Saturday night, and I performed with... Laura Boebert, who is a congresswoman and carries a gun in D.C. everywhere she goes. She's amazing. And if you don't know her, you can look her up, Laura Boebert. But she is going to be one of the guests on the podcast upcoming as soon as we get all of the guest tweaks ironed out. I have a lot of great guests you guys are going to be part of, and you're going to be proud of the fact that you got your donations made this podcast exist and this television show continue to grow. So when you see some of the guests I have on, some of the guests that the major networks have on, it's because you all say, I knew I could do that. What I couldn't do was put all the pieces together, and you guys did that. So if you're coming here tonight and you want to see some laughs, that's what I want to give you here first, because tonight I want to talk to you guys about the idea of truth. You know, truth is a commodity that's difficult to find nowadays in America, because as we learned during the Corona cult, if you don't like the truth, you just simply call it a lie, or come up with a new creative version of what you like, your subjectivity, and then name that truth. Now, of course, both sides will accuse each other of doing the same thing. So what has to happen for any life, any culture, any value to move forward is an actual truth has to be discovered. We're going to do that in a little bit. I'm going to have my Truth Hurts segment, and I'm going to talk about that idea. But first, I want to show you a segment of one of my comedy routines I did a few years ago from my latest album, Unapologetical, as I get prepared to make a new album eventually. But this one is it's a joke for those, again, for people that like me and come on all the time. You guys just kind of accept whatever I throw out there, and hopefully it's valuable. And at worst, you can talk to each other because I'm boring the crap out of you. But the rest of the people that come on usually come on for the first time because they've seen comedy clips and they like that. So I always have assumed that they come on to listen to jokes and to talk about it. So I'm going to show you a clip. I'm going to talk a bit about that, deconstruct a little bit, and then we'll get to truth, and then we'll get to our special guest interview today. But, Wyatt, if you would, I want to show these guys a little idea that I came up with a few years ago based on an actual true event of something that I came across in a news article, made a joke about it. So I'm going to show you how you can take just a simple idea that you hear on the radio and turn it into a 3.5-minute routine that is so filled with genius. I got to tell you so.
You're not getting another applause for that. Just saying.
Fine, play it.
Just saying.
My son and his button possession.
You hired me for it, man.
And I was driving through Georgia. It's a beautiful state. I was just there. And I had the radio on. They had a news flash. Yes, we have removed a sign from the interstates in Georgia. And the reason they've removed this sign is because somebody had complained that the sign was sexist. Now I know what you're thinking. What freeway sign could possibly be construed as sexist? And you're thinking like that because you people are normal. This is a hard-to-come-by quality in America nowadays. What do I mean by that? Here's the sign that they no longer have in Georgia. For real, because somebody complained it was sexist. Are you ready? Men at have been dashed. And by the way, if you're a woman out there that wants to shovel hot asphalt into potholes in the freeways in Georgia in July, you're a better man than me. Knock yourself out. It's all you. What am I saying? Should they be offended? No. Why? Because the man from men at work comes from mankind, which by our actual idioms and colloquialisms of English meant male, female. It was not gender specific. It already meant both. But somebody complained and called it sexist, and it was removed. Why? Why? Because whoever controls the language of a people controls the people. The moment I can tell you what you cannot say, or even worse, demand what you do say, I own you. The professor from Ball State knows what I'm talking about. This man hasn't been free for 15 years. What are you pointing to her for? This guy immediately bails out on his wife. What about her? Thank you, Judas. Here's your silver. Run off. You've done well. There's a mountain to climb. Are you a professor? What is she? My wife. Okay. You just literally did just throw her under the bus. Thank you so much. But it does matter about the ideas of thoughts, the ideas of who controls the language. Because here's what was interesting. We used to always honor women as well. We always named the boats after women. Queen Mary, Queen Elizabeth. There's no King Fred boat. Nobody cares. Men don't care. I don't know if you know this or not, because you're younger folks. Did you know that there was a time in America where we used to only name the hurricanes after women? We gave you that honor. And then they got mad. Well, why not name it after men, too? I don't understand. Make up your mind. I would think you'd be proud that we've named this gigantic, powerful wind that comes through a town, destroying everything in its wake and leaving death and misery and oh, I can't. I see what you're getting at.
So, obviously, there was something wrong with the idea that people were putting down signs and simple ways to communicate something like men at work, so you didn't run over these guys, and they hated it. This is what wokeness does. It becomes literally living in the land of absurdity. But as I said in the joke, and this is what you guys got to understand, if you're fans of what I do, nothing that I've ever tried to say as a comic didn't have something deeper that mattered to me that I felt was more important. And as I've said to people on numerous occasions, you know, and people always, you know, and we've talked about this, you find an artist of any kind, a band, a musician, a comedian, and you say, oh, he's like, and you try to find somebody similar that you can hang your hat on and say, what type of style does this guy have, and what does he remind you of? And of course, as we've said, that the one I hear the most of is George Carlin, and then I hear Robin Williams and Dennis Leary. I think those are the three the most. But the thing that I would say is this: I realized that my comedy does have more of a leaning towards a Carlin, a Dave Chappelle, a Richard Pryor, maybe a Chris Rock, in that I wanted to talk about some actual substantive realities that were happening in my country amongst my people. So I didn't choose to do that. I mean, to be honest with you, I'd probably be a lot more successful if I just said, let's just be straight funny and leave it like that. But I can't help it. I just felt like if I get a chance to talk to people, bring some laughter and bring some inspiration, I got to use that to leverage it in a way that can make things even more important to be explored, because there's so much at stake in America now. There's so much at stake. We literally could potentially lose our country. We really can. Now, of course, everybody says that. Everybody that doesn't get the ruling that they wanted from the Supreme Court, everybody that doesn't get the law passed that they'd hoped for, everybody that doesn't get their candidate in office, everybody that thinks that they are not able to participate in America anymore because we're being stolen from or lied to, or we can't vote anymore, whatever. Everybody uses that and then says, of course, we're going to lose America. It's always this hyperbole, this large-scale use of words to scare you, to frighten you, to get you to join our side, our power position, and try to gain power. But here's the thing, guys. What if your position is right, is true, is good? What if your position, which is different than somebody else's, actually is better? Notice that leftism doesn't let you use words that draw distinctions. You don't get to say you're better, your country's better, your culture's better, your school's better, your idea's better, your business is better, your ability to acquire things or to acquire wealth because of something you've done and achieved, not by stealing it, not by exploiting, by simply achieving something under the fair and moral rules given to you in a free market society, is better than those in poverty. I mean, aren't we always talking about, and what does the woke live with? The idea of equity. Everybody should get the same thing because they see that some people don't have something else. And they consider that not good. Do you understand what I'm saying? You're not allowed to say that something's better because somehow you're othering others and you're putting them into a category that they're not as good as you, and we can't be judging, we can't make value judgments. And then they do nothing but make value judgments that if you are successful, that's bad because it means you exploited others. A conflation that is not provable. It's not even true. But this is where we're at now in America, where we have people who easily jump onto a bandwagon of a meme, a bumper sticker psychology that just gives them a term or a phrase they want to hear, feels good about themselves. I'm of this group, and I don't have to do the hard work of actually studying and seeing if what I believe is true. But how do we have those conversations? How do we even have conversations about truth and lies? Because we need to know. When I started this podcast, I did my opening talking about James Caan and me in a movie, and I got to go up and meet him, and then at the end I said, is this true or is this a lie, right? And I said, if you make it all the way into the show, I'll tell you. Well, everything that I said about that idea of James Caan, because he just passed away last week, so that's why I used that name. But everything I said about me being Cop 3 and Bob Raffleson, who created the Monkees, was the director, and I had a hot dog with my finger in it, and it was an HBO movie called Poodle Springs, I think I call it. And there's Jimmy Caan, and I gave it to him because that's what he went by, was Jimmy. All of that ridiculous story that you heard me say that brought you in but sounded crazy because it was off the cuff. I got to tell you guys something. I'm fessing up. It's true. That entire story was true. But it sounded kind of crazy, didn't it? But that's part of my life. I've been and have been a professional actor and have been in numerous films and have more upcoming. We'll talk about them as they get ready to come out. But I wanted to add a segment. I told you guys I would do this as we got more oftentimes doing the podcast. And moving from the Brad Stine Has Issues original 10-minute rants that I was putting out for the last few years that started this podcast together, I wanted to start adding them live to these podcasts that I'm doing as I talk about an issue or a concept. But hopefully it can be more topical because I talk about it the week that it's happening. So whatever happened the week prior, I might be able to reference it. And I think that would make it more interesting because I don't have to make it sort of this broad, organic idea. It can be about something that actually took place. In this particular case, though, I have a question to ask you, and the question can be helpful if you're actually trying to gather and if you actually care about the idea, the word truth. Okay? So this is a segment that I plan on doing regularly called The Truth Hurts. This one goes like this. I need you to ask yourself a question. Then, I need you to get in the habit of asking others you disagree with the same question. You see, in many of my discussions with those that disagree with me, I've learned that often a lot of time is wasted on simply trying to get to a place where you're speaking the same language. I could be speaking to the most brilliant man in the world, but if he speaks German and I don't, then no matter how articulate and how intelligent and how learned and how innovative and how persuasive and how skilled in rhetoric he is, guess what? It's irrelevant because I don't understand him. Where it can get tricky is when the person you're talking to does speak English, and yet you still find yourself flummoxed in your interaction. That's why this question is so important, and is simple, yet crucial. Ask them when you get into a conversation. Before we go any further, I need to know this. Do you believe in truth? Not do you believe some things are true, like 2 plus 2 is 4, or you believe extraterrestrials exist somewhere, since that could be true subjectively. No, the big question is, do you believe in immutable truth? Immutable meaning unchanging over time or unable to be changed. So my question is, do you believe that truth, absolute truth, exists, even if you weren't here to apprehend it? In other words, is 2 plus 2 still 4 after you die? Does 2 plus 2 equal 4 in another possible universe? See, most people will answer in the affirmative that of course they believe in truth, but then they will often respond with this retort. I know you've heard it said to you. They'll say something like, but whose truth? If they answer like that, then you realize something about themselves that they don't, which is they don't believe in truth at all. And worse yet, they don't know it. Nothing is worse than to be self-deluded. So, why would someone answer the truth question with, whose truth? If they believe actual truth, independent of people's perceptions, exist. Why? Because they have been shaped by postmodern relativism. They believe that truth is simply a preference, often based on where you were raised and what culture you come from. For example, one of the many philosophical flaws atheists use to counter Christianity is to say that, well, you're only a Christian because that's how you were raised. If you were raised in India, then you're more than likely going to be a Hindu. If, on the other hand, you were raised in Iran, then you are probably going to be a Muslim. What they always leave out of what they consider a clever insight is they never turn that concept on themselves. You see, this is called the genetic fallacy, which is that just because you were taught what your parents believe, for example, doesn't necessarily make the concept untrue. In other words, truth or falsehood isn't rely on where you heard it. That has nothing to do with whether it's true or false. In other words, if Richard Dawkins has children, then wouldn't you presume he raises them as atheists? So if I met one of his kids and they said they were atheists, would I be justified in saying, well, you're only an atheist because your dad is? Might be completely true that they were raised atheists and so they're simply carrying on the family tradition. But what this idea doesn't address is the validity of the claim. Dawkins has chosen atheism because he believes it's true. So he passed this perspective on to his kids, who believe it's true because they trust their dad. But what it doesn't tell us is if atheism is true with a capital T, immutably truth, unchangeable truth, transcendently truth, actually true. Just because you believe something is true doesn't make it true. But people can be sincere and be sincerely wrong. This is what religion brings to humanity that atheism can't. See, religion is that system of activities and beliefs directed toward that which is perceived to be of sacred value and transforming power. Of course, there are many different religions or anti-religions, but when you compare them, one thing is certain. They disagree on the fundamentals of what life is and what are we supposed to do with it. So ultimately, if they disagree, then one thing is certain. They can't all be right. Unlike what the postmodernist would tell you. We know from formal logic that something can't be true and not true simultaneously and in the same place. So, if one belief tells you, all people go to heaven, and the other one says only those who accept Christ go to heaven, then this is the logical truth. They can't both be right. They could both be wrong, but they can't both be right at the same time in the same place because they have two divergent beliefs. They cancel each other out. But one thing for sure, most religions do have in common is that life has a meaning worth pursuing. Atheism in its truest form, and I have told you guys this over and over again, it's nihilistic. At least that is what Nietzsche and Bertrand Russell and even Richard Dawkins have concluded. Life has no ultimate meaning, they say. And then they spend the rest of their life encouraging you to make your own meaning while you're here. Of course, if the big picture is that life has no ultimate meaning, then any micro meanings, and that's all they are, these things you're creating out of whole cloth, these micro meanings you throw in the middle of it, they're illusions. They're ghosts created to try to fill the hole that nihilism leaves, since no human can possibly be fulfilled in a meaningless life. Matter of fact, if you believe life is meaningless, that's where people kill themselves. Thus, they create a mirage to give themselves a delusion that their existence here can be bearable. As I have said before on other rants, if you have a belief that must borrow a concept from an antithetical belief in order to endure your own, perhaps the prudent thing is to abandon yours. Doesn't work. Remember, if there is no transcendent meaning, then there is also no truth. Because then truth would be a concept stuck in the middle of a meaninglessness and thus has nothing to offer the world. Do you understand that? See, all atheists will tell you they believe in truth. When they say that, though, they unwittingly acknowledge that only in a theistic universe can there be an actual purpose, teleology, to our existence. As I've also told you before, if an atheist watches this clip, there is one thing for sure. I promise you, if they happen to watch this and leave a message in the thread, you're going to see something about them that I have figured out a long time ago. They will not be able to understand this concept. They can't wrap their minds around the truth that if there is no ultimate novel, for example, then every chapter you try to write within it has no binding and thus falls into oblivion. They think that the chapters they write have meaning because they give meaning to them, but, and this is the metaphor, if I burn a novel, the whole story, then every little chapter within it dies along with the book. So nothing's here, nothing matters, no story to tell. This universe will one day vanish, and every story, every person, every memory, every scientific discovery, everything will vanish forever. So by sheer logic, nothing we do here, from science to civilizations, will exist. And so it truly doesn't matter if you are good or evil, because in the long run, it simply disappears. And that is what atheism gives humanity. Nothing. But since every human lives as though there is meaning, even when some have concluded there is none, then it seems that something internal in the human is telling us there is a great novel, actually, that does exist, written by an author bigger than ourselves. And we need to spend our days getting to know what he expects of us, since he alone gives us the meaning of life. He actually gave us a story. A beginning, a middle, and an end. And we are just one of the chapters while we're passing through. So, does truth exist? You bet. Can it exist in atheism? Nope. That's just reason and philosophically sound. Next time you ask someone if they believe in truth, and if they answer whose truth, you'll know they don't understand. Or they might just say truth is relative. And if they give you that one, just ask them this. Oh, really? You believe that truth is relative? Is that true? This is God's comic, Brad Stine, and that was another moment where the truth hurts. Wyatt, what do you think about that incredible insight I had about truth?
I think you need to learn to talk faster.
Why?
Trying to...
Was that 20 minutes?
Well, probably. No, it was really more along the lines of trying to make sure that, you know, like when we did the dry run of the whole thing, you stuck to the script.
Yeah.
When you did this, you ad-libbed, which is great.
Yeah.
So we kind of messed with the timings for the teleprompter.
Well, you know, it was going too slow, and I had no way to let you know. So that's what you are watching and witnessing. Real stuff happening in real time. My son doing the best he can. He actually has to leave the soundboard, run over to that other place, try to run this new newfangled equipment we have so I can read that stuff that I wrote, and then on the fly, extemporaneously adding my own improv stuff, because that's what I do, Wyatt. That's what I do. I want to make you scared and frightened and sweat.
Well, mission accomplished.
There you go.
You want your prize?
You know what I'm shooting for? That you saw yourself. Have you soiled yourself yet?
No, surprisingly no.
That's funny. Well, you know what, folks? My son Wyatt is an incredibly gifted young man. A lot of that gift comes from his DNA, and of course that DNA came from me because, of course, Wyatt extruded from my loins. But you need to understand something. He has decided to commit to this, to be a producer, to be the sidekick, in the hopes that we can move this into the big time. What do you think the big leagues would be? What do you think it would take for this podcast to become greater and more substantial than, let's say, the podcast about floral arrangements?
Well, as a general rule of thumb, when making a podcast,
right,
the less it involves flowers, the better.
Okay.
That's just written in stone.
Okay.
You know? Like that's podcast making 101.
Okay, well, I don't know. See, I don't do the deep work, son, because remember, podcasts kind of developed during your generation. See, so this is more germane to your people. My people had newspapers and Dear Abby and stuff like that.
I mean, look, all I'm saying is at the end of the day, nobody wants to watch the podcast watching grass grow.
Okay, well, that's what you think. But what you don't understand is there are people on this earth that will watch grass grow, which is why when the corona cult hit, they were first in line to say, how many masks you want me to wear? So that's where we're at, son. And because it does matter about America, because I always speak about that, let me tell to my new viewers, and they are out there, a couple things. This is my ministry. If you're not a Christian, you don't have to be. You can watch this. I got a lot of people that aren't Christians that watch me. But I am trying to do live events. I got one coming up August 7th in Arlington, Texas. Buy tickets. We're trying to sell the place out to show them that this is the type of things that America wants. Conservative comedy that lifts up God and country, tears down political correctness, because I want to watch political correctness die in my lifetime. But first, I want to watch it suffer. If you would be interested in a CD, I know who buys CDs. Nobody. That's what makes these so unique. I found these in a storage bin. There's, I think, 20 left in the whole time. This is my original routine called Brad Stine, Rebel Without a Curse. It has jokes that ended up in various other one of my projects over the years. And so this is the first one. If you'd like to donate, I'll give you a gift. I'll sign my name and yours and send this to you for a gift of $50 or more. All you have to do is say, I'm in. We'll send you the link. You do it, and you just will come on, private message me, tell me where to send it and who to write it to. I've got 3. I'm trying to get 3 of these done tonight, 50 or more, and we will be able to continue to grow this podcast. As I said, I had this amazing opportunity to meet Congresswoman Lauren Boebert from Colorado. She's figured out a way to carry a handgun in D.C. That's what kind of a bad mamma jamma this lady is. So she's 35, a young lady, but she's kicking butt out there and standing up for America's values. And I wanted to tell you guys that this is really what I'm trying to accomplish. I do care about what's going on in America. I do care about where we are and where we're going. And so I bring on a guest that, for those who have been on this show, have watched the show before, that I've had on more than anybody. His name is Rick Green, and him and I do shows together called the Comedy and Constitution Tour. I do comedy and talk about America and our rights and our religious liberties and our freedoms and our free speech. He talks about the Founding Fathers, the original intent of the Constitution, how we got where we are, how we can get where we want to go. And he's an expert on it, so he can talk about the Roe v. Wade decision. He can talk about the gun decision, and that's what I want to talk to him about, because this is really where the rubber meets the road. For us to have a podcast and have freedom to speak like this, and have freedom that nobody's going to shoot me and burn me up and kill me and blow my house to pieces because I want to do this, is because we have freedom. So we need to keep it. We can't keep it if we don't know what it is. So Wyatt, is Rick called in yet?
He has.
Okay, so we have access.
I don't misplace the buttons.
So because the first half of the podcast has gone a little bit longer than I expected, let's get right to it. So I'm going to have to switch from this to the next phase of my ability to bring him on, so that we can, in fact, do an interview with expert on the Constitution, somebody that you guys out there in podcast land for Brad Stine Issues love, and somebody that always is inspiring and intriguing. So Wyatt, if you could, let's put on Rick Green and let's get busy talking about some important stuff.
All right, doing that now.
Let me get all the stuff I need. And as I promised, there he is, Rick Green, and I know that backdrop is not your home, because nothing has been whittled I don't see that anything has been painted with some kind of brush that you guys created off the hair of the tail of a donkey that you captured on your ranch. So obviously,
there's no big Texas flag.
There's no big Texas flag. So obviously, either you're on the road or you have been captured by a blue state and they are putting you through the torment of putting you in a Motel 6.
I need a sign right here that says "Help, please."
Yeah.
Rescue me,
Yeah.
Brad. No,
Well,
I am. I'm on the road and you know, just trying to get as many people to become Constitution coaches as possible. So I'm traveling on a 3-week trip. Plus, we're doing several of our Patriot Academies in state capitals. We've been to, oh goodness, we've been to Florida to their capital. We're headed to Delaware and then Arizona and then Texas, where we'll hopefully get to see you as well.
Yes. Well, I mean, we had the show at Rob McCoy's church. When was it? Last Saturday?
Last Sunday, yeah. It was
Last
great,
Sunday?
man.
And
Packed
it was
house,
amazing.
Packed overflow room. Extra overflow room. It was great.
Let me tell you people something. Rob McCoy has got a church. What's it called? Something word?
Godspeak Calvary
Godspeak Calvary Chapel. And I grew up in Southern California, so I went to the original Calvary Chapel with Chuck Smith when I was young. And they're amazing churches, and they always seem to create derivative churches, sister churches that were always unique pastors. Were very, they weren't cookie cutter. They really would have their own individual DNA, their own flavor. And Rob, I should let my people know, was one of the courageous California pastors, and I got to give them extra shout out because that was a brutal regime during the Corona cult period. And so he said, I ain't shutting down, and he was wide open, and he was in Thousand Oaks, California. So little outside of L.A., I'm not sure Thousand Oaks is L.A. County. It might be, but it's certainly not in L.A.
Yeah, it's north of L.A.
Yeah, but close enough that they could have despised him and tried to
well, they did. They
fine
sued him, man. They went after him for all kinds of fines, threatened to put him in jail.
Yeah.
I mean, he really had to make a decision. He asked his attorney, he's like, what's the worst they can do to me? Go through the list. The guy reads off the long list. He's like, man, anything else? No, that's it. And he said, okay, well, I'm willing to risk all of that. And
the risk,
courageous.
The risk paid off, as did every pastor that had the courage to open, is if they were either in a state that didn't care or they were in a state that did do the suing and did the attack. My friend Rick Long in Arvada, Colorado, also was. I think he's was up to $600,000 or $700,000 in fines, and he's like, ain't paying. So good luck. And so far, nothing's happened. So it shows, I guess, a bigger truth. And you and I have talked about this numerous times as I've talked to my people. Corona exposed so much about the flaws in America, how easily we can be taken over by our rights and our constitutional rights cast aside. We saw how quickly Americans will give away their constitutional rights, even unwittingly, unfortunately. Yeah. And that is why constitutional coaches that you create and the Patriot Academy are so crucial, because you are training people to say, you're going to give your rights up if you don't know what they are. You're going to give them away if you don't even know you had them. So tell me, before we go into a little bit more of the cultural elements that have happened in the last couple of weeks, tell the viewers, how can they go ahead and become a constitutional coach? How do they get the information, and then how do they start a group so that they can begin to educate the American public that obviously are ignorant?
Yeah, constitutioncoach.com is the main website. It's free to be a Constitution coach, and it's exactly what you said, Brad. In fact, you sound like John Jay. You should get a wig. You sounded just like John Jay, first Chief Justice of the
I'm wearing a wig. Court. Oh, you thought this was my hair?
Oh, it is a wig. Oh.
So well I've been bald since I was a baby. I know. I had professionals do this.
Well, I was expecting a powdered wig, but
exactly.
But Jay said he said that every citizen should study the Constitution so that they'll know their rights, they'll perceive when they're violated, and be the better prepared to defend and assert them. So exactly what you just said. If you don't know your rights, you're not even going to perceive that they've been violated. You're certainly not going to stand up and properly, peacefully stand up and defend those rights. So that's what we do at Patriot Academy. Is the Constitution Coach program has just grown. In fact, that church we were in, Brad, on Sunday, Godspeak, that's where we filmed a lot of the new material for the Biblical Citizenship in Modern America version of the Constitution class with Rob McCoy and Kirk Cameron and others. And it's just, man, I'm telling you, it's taken off. It's all over the country now, 13,000 Constitution coaches. So these classes are happening in virtually every community in the nation, and we're encouraging. My goal is 40,000 coaches. That's what we want to have, and we want to have 5 million people go through the courses before the next presidential election. So really encourage folks to sign up. Again, it's free, and you can also get Kirk Cameron's American Campfire Revival is another course that we do through the coach program.
Right. Well, and this is, again, so crucial, as well as an addendum, the biblical citizenship course. That now, is there any hybridization of the Constitution elements that you teach that come into that?
Yeah, so absolutely, yeah. So you still get a pretty good crash course in the biblical citizenship class on the Constitution. So we use about half of our Constitution Alive course. And the idea is, look, if you're a Christian, if you're a believer, then you need to know what the Bible says about being a good citizen and what the Constitution says about how to do that in the American system. And so we teach both of those things combined in the biblical citizenship course.
Well, there's so much to talk about here, and I know we got about 30 minutes that we're going to talk, but I bring you on. You've been on my show more than any guest because not only are we friends, but honestly, more importantly.
But you're desperate, and you couldn't.
I am. I tried. You were at the bottom of the barrel.
But I
know. I couldn't. I tried everybody. My janitor said he was busy, and he doesn't speak English. So explain that. But I constantly watch my podcast today. You didn't hear it, of course, because we just got you. But has been about truth, speaking truth, always speaking truth, dealing with truth at all times. And how truth, even though it doesn't change, can be manipulated or discarded for the sake of power. And there's no question that the world's economic systems and educational systems even, and the religious systems and the philosophical systems of government oftentimes, we're always battling power. Some man wanting to take and control the people, as opposed to this ridiculous experiment of a constitutional republic where the people rule. So tell me, in the people, how difficult would it be to start an American Constitution that you are an expert on today, in the environment that we have today, from scratch? And is there a way that you can explain a little bit about how difficult it was to allow the principles of what a republic would be, to not theorize it, but actually put it into practice and have it not fall apart?
Yeah. There has to be a foundation for liberty, right? There has to be fertile ground for freedom to grow. And I think the reason we've allowed what you described, the COVID cult, of the last 2 years, and so many other ways that we've lost freedom in America, there's always been tyrants. There's always been people that wanted to lord over others and use power to take away people's freedom and to control their lives. That's always been the case. It's the nature of man. But if you had a strong moral foundation and a strong civic foundation, where the people understood what liberty was, where what we just described, where they knew their rights, perceived violations, defended those rights, then you were always able in America to stop the tyrants. You could prevent, a politician couldn't get elected if they were doing things that were taking away people's liberty, or if they did get elected, they got thrown out and they didn't get reelected. The problem today is that foundation is not as strong. We don't have that foundation of liberty. We don't have that fertile soil. What we've had is a petri dish of civic and biblical ignorance, and it's in that petri dish that tyranny grows. It's in that petri dish that you allow bad leadership and bad government to grow. So the way to change all of that is civic and biblical literacy, to actually come back and teach the people. Even in the beginning of our country, and really to your question, the reason that liberty grew here and the reason they were able to launch a Declaration of Independence and a Constitution that framed liberty for a nation was that there was fertile ground for that. Even under English rule and under English law, we had a certain amount of respect for individual liberties. We had a certain amount of respect for the proper role of government. It was part of why we rejected what the king was doing. We were saying, hey, we had a defined jurisdiction for you as government. We had a defined jurisdiction for us in the colonies and a defined jurisdiction for the church and the family. And you're violating that. You're stepping over into our jurisdictions, and that's a violation of our rights, and we perceive that. So they had a foundation. It wasn't like, it's part of what's made it so hard to export liberty to Afghanistan and these other countries. They don't have the fertile ground. They don't have the years of foundation. What the Pilgrims did here, and that's why we use the monuments, why Kirk Cameron teaches the first class, and it's all about that national monument to the forefathers, is because it was 150 years of cultivating the land, of making the soil ripe for liberty. And that's why when John Witherspoon at the Continental Congress, of course, just, a week ago, we celebrated independence, but a few weeks before that, a few days before that, on July 1st, when they first took the vote for liberty and for the Declaration of Independence, there was a guy named John Dickinson that said, no, we shouldn't do this. The people are not ripe for revolution. And John Witherspoon's response was, and he was a pastor in Congress, he said they're not only ripe, but rotting. And I think it was because they had been planting and sowing and they knew what liberty looked like. So that's a really long lead up to the answer to your question, which is, I think today there is fertile ground, but not enough of it. We need to toil the ground more. We need to be planting the seeds of liberty and watering those seeds. And that happens in our own home with ourselves and with our children, but then also in our churches and our communities. And that takes time. It takes a generation, I think, to restore this kind of liberty. It's not going to be just one presidential election or just one, big rally or one big, even, summer of people having protests or any of that. It takes a generation. And Brad, that's why what we do together is so important. When you use comedy to get people's attention, to entertain them, and then teach a principle of liberty in the middle of that comedy, that is so powerful, bro. I'm telling you, that is more powerful than what any, philosophy teacher or pastor or constitution teacher like me is able to do, because you get people to listen that wouldn't normally listen. It's why doing the comedy and constitution together has been so powerful, why people leave those events fired up, because it's this powerful combination. Anyway, I think doing what you and I do together on a broader scale and then getting people to do that themselves with these courses, doing that for years is what it's going to take to ultimately have another true revolution of freedom. And I'm not talking about a violent revolution. I'm talking about a peaceful revolution, but you have enough people that are willing to get off the couch, get out of their comfort zone and say, I'm willing to give of my life, my fortune, my sacred honor, because I want my children to live in freedom.
Amen. And that's what I again discovered, and I know we might even be repeating ourselves to a bit, but it probably bears repeating, is the Corona cult exposed a lot of flaws, a lot of fragility, a word that's been misused with the CRT movement, but the fragility of the foundation, because the foundation is the single most crucial element, as Jesus said, in a building, because it's going to hold it all up. And if it sinks, then the whole thing, I don't care how big and strong and how many Kevlar jackets you rack around it and how much steel, beams, it's going to fall, because the foundation has to be the single most powerful element of the entire edifice.
And crisis reveals that, right?
Yes.
Crisis reveals your character. It reveals for you and me, if we have crisis, it reveals who we really are when we respond in the moment. And the nation had a crisis, and it revealed exactly what you're describing, cracks in the foundation. Real
yes. Well, but the reason I say that is because I've watched in America, as have you, because we're kind of optimists. We think that if we just teach good old American values and remember who we are, and we all get our little muskets out and our fireworks and get a flag waving and sing a little God Bless America, everybody's going to be jumping on board, and we can't wait to recreate the America that we all grew up in. That ain't true.
That's right.
That is not necessarily the case. Now, the reason I say that is because, let me give you a simple example, but it has a deeper resonance. I just did a show for Republicans, of all people, not that I'm anti-Republican, but they've disappointed me so much in the last number of years that I had to actually walk away from them and become an independent out of principle, that I felt like they were taking me for granted, because when I vote for a conservative to conserve the values of America and the original intent of the Constitution, I expect you to keep your word and represent my voice when I vote for you. Right. So if you're a traitor to that, to me, you're worse than a leftist who at least said, I'm never going to stand for those values. I'm going to try to destroy them. Okay, I know what I'm up against. At least you have the guts to say so. But don't say you're going to be my voice and then betray me. I'd rather have you be, Caesar than Judas. I know what I'm dealing with, as opposed to you fooled me. But I was working for a small community, Trinidad, Colorado, you're probably familiar with it, but it's southwest of Colorado Springs, so it's almost to New Mexico, way, way down there. Conservative, but also an odd little town. It was actually the go-to place for sex reassignment surgery. It was like one of the beginnings of that.
Trinidad, Colorado, seriously?
Trinidad, Colorado was one of the first places to start doing that. And Renee Richards, one of the first persons that got that, was a guy that became a woman that was a tennis player. You might remember this person. But I guess I think it was him or somebody like him, or maybe it was the guy that did his surgery, ended up coming to Trinidad and starting a practice there.
Where they do,
yeah, and that became a place. So it's an odd little place to do these obviously unorthodox things. But there was this Republican gathering. Lauren Boebert was there, who's a congresswoman. You might know her.
She's one of our graduates.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Well,
we love her.
Yeah, well, she was there with her piece strapped on her leg and doing her thing, and I got to meet her, and she got a carry permit in D.C. and carries her gun wide open in Washington, D.C. as a congresswoman. Now, I only say that to say it's really hard to get a carry permit in D.C., where it should be the easiest, frankly. But my point was, if you don't decide to retrieve and demand your constitutional right to carry a gun like in a D.C., it's going to seem impossible.
Yeah.
So you're going to give up. I guess they won't let us have. Oh, I guess I don't fit the criteria. Instead of stepping back as an informed American citizen and saying, wait a minute, what do you have the right to say I can't carry a gun? It's literally in the Constitution.
Right.
So go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that, of course, Michael Moore has now come out with his new amendment, the 28th Amendment to the Constitution, that essentially gets rid of the Second Amendment and codifies in the Constitution the New York law that just got overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court, that basically says the only way you can have a gun is if you prove that somebody's after you, that you're in desperate need of defending your family, which, of course, is what you'd do if the crazy guy comes into your church to shoot up your church or the grocery store. You'd say, wait, give me like a couple of months and come. I need to run over to the judge and convince them that I have a need to defend myself. So I'm sure the bad guy will just wait at the front door for 6-8 weeks for you to go prove to the court that you need to defend yourself, and then you come back with the fire. That's Michael Moore's America, where only the bad guys have the guns and the good guys have to stand there and get shot. But I'll say this, Brad, about what this stuff. When I say it takes a generation, Clarence Thomas has been on the U.S. Supreme Court for 31 years, laying the groundwork for what just happened over the last couple of weeks. Sam Alito's been there 16 years, in the minority, writing minority opinions, very rarely writing a majority decision. The only real victories we've had on the Second Amendment at the Supreme Court before this big Bruin case 2 weeks ago was the Heller case out of D.C. that basically said that you have a right to have a firearm in your home. That was it, just that you could keep a firearm in your home. So it's half of the Second Amendment that says you have a right to keep and bear arms. And then the McDonald case a few years later said that that applied to state and local government as well. And then this case, the Bruin case, says absolutely you have the right to keep and bear that arm, to be able to have that firearm wherever you go to defend yourself in the moment, and you don't have to prove to government that you have a special need because some crazy guy's after you, or an ex-husband or girl or whatever. This was a huge Supreme Court decision, massive, massive victory. And I just have to tell you, Brad, between the Bruin case upholding the Second Amendment, the Dobbs case overturning Roe v. Wade and Casey, the Kennedy case upholding religious liberty The case out of Maine upholding religious liberty in education, the EPA case with West Virginia striking down the fourth branch of government, the swamp, the bureaucrats making law that was absolutely destroying our energy. All of these cases over the last couple of weeks, they are dismantling the strongholds of the left. That's what Thomas and Alito are doing right now. They are tearing down piece by piece what the left has done, using the courts to remake America into a communist nation. They are tearing that down. It is a beautiful thing to watch and should give everybody hope. But it took a long time to get there. I've been a member of the Federalist Society for 30 years now, since I was in college. We've been pushing for this stuff, trying to make this stuff happen for 30 years. And here we are. Clarence Thomas was actually appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court my first year of law school. I can remember watching his hearings in the hallways at law school between classes, and how he stood up for truth. And when it was, you might have seen the clip that's going around right now where he was asked by Orrin Hatch at the hearing, after all of the pain and all of the craziness, all the lies about him, we heard you're going to withdraw your nomination. He said, I would rather die than withdraw my nomination. Not so I can be on the court, but to stop these high-tech lynchings from happening. And, of course, Joe Biden was the one that led that whole thing against him. So, anyway, I want to applaud Clarence Thomas, and I want to just say, to your viewers, don't give up. This stuff takes time. And the court is really the hardest one to change. If that now has changed, thank you, Donald Trump. Let's be honest. It wouldn't have happened without Donald Trump's presidency. If that can change, and we're now restoring constitutional jurisdictions at the U.S. Supreme Court level, which has been the vehicle to tear down all of that, if that can change, absolutely we can change Congress. Absolutely we can change our state legislatures. This should give everyone hope in a big, big way.
Well, I think that's true. But obviously their reaction has proven that they aren't going, they see the writing on the wall, and that's why they said, now here we go again. Guess we're going to have to pack the courts. Guess we're going to have to come up with federal land to create abortion. I mean, the gymnastics they're going through to basically say, we will not listen to anything you say or give it credence unless it agrees with what we want it to be. Proving that they've used and leveraged the courts to unconstitutionally steal freedoms from Americans. But your average American doesn't always know what to do to retrieve that. If Michael Moore came to me and said, listen, I believe that if I had the ability to decide who gets to have a gun or not, then if he looked at me and I said, you don't get a gun unless you can prove to me that there's someone who is threatening you and your life and your freedoms. And if you can't prove that, then you don't get a gun. And I'd say, thank you, Michael Moore, because I can prove that right now. It's you. The Second Amendment outside of the militia, which was more the organized gathering of folks who are trying to go after bigger armies. But the second part of that, which was the individual right of deterrence, to me goes beyond the obvious. There's the bad guy breaking into my house. There's the bad guy at Walmart. There's the bad guy in Uvalde in the school. That's the obvious existential threat. But there's another threat, and that is the ideological threat that comes from a Michael Moore who says, you got to prove you need it. And I said, you don't get it. You're the proof. If there's people out there telling me that they get to decide whether I get a gun or not, you're my threat. You're it. You're the threat. So you've just proven my point. If you believe that I can't have a gun without your permission, you've just given me permission to get it because I'm frightened of you. Because you're the guy that will turn me in if I'm not wearing a mask. You're the guy that's going to have my children inundated with propaganda and demand it happen in public schools. You're the one that's going to let laws exist that throw me into prison because you don't like the way I see the world or who I don't agree with. You're my threat. You're my biggest threat. Second Amendment was made to defend myself from people like you. So that's right.
You're exactly right, and while we're on this subject, I apologize for going off on that tangent. I don't even know what you wanted the topic to be tonight. But I'll say this about the Second Amendment and now this law being passed, that Biden has pushed through in the wake of Uvalde and Buffalo and these other mass murder events. these red flag laws are a real danger, and they're a danger to your liberty for exactly what you just described. That people like a Michael Moore would call in a New York minute to have your guns taken away or my guns taken away. And then think about the abuse that the FBI has exhibited over the last year and a half, going after political enemies of the President of the United States, and now these people that have been in solitary confinement and detained from January 6th. And I was one of the first ones to say, if you broke things, you deserve to be punished. There ought to be some jail time if you broke into things and you broke things and all that. But what we have done to these people for a year and a half now, not allowed to shave, Brad, not allowed to cut their hair, not allowed. I mean, think about the abuse that they're doing to these people in an American jail. It is unconscionable. This stuff doesn't happen unless you're in a third world country, and we're doing it in United States jails because they're political enemies, not because of what they actually did at the Capitol or didn't do at the Capitol.
Well,
we treated the Gitmo detainees that were actual terrorists trying to blow up the country better than what we've done to these American citizens that, yes, went too far when they broke into the Capitol out of passion and love for the country, the ones that were truly there because they loved the country. And no doubt there were Antifa people and other. But some of these people did get out of hand. They were very upset about what was happening to the nation, and they did things that were wrong, and they should be. But we're treating them like animals, and it is it's unconscionable. I'm angry about it. I'm righteously angry about it. But it comes back to your point that they've proven they will abuse the system. So the last thing you want to do is give government the ability to keep you from being able to protect yourself, all because some anonymous tip came in that said that you might be crazy or whatever. I mean, that's exactly what you don't want. That is a very much a Gestapo kind of world that we would be creating there, and that's what Joe Biden just signed into law that Republicans, 14 or 15 Republicans in the U.S. Senate helped him to do, John Cornyn of Texas being one of them. So shame on those Republicans who should be passionate about defending the Second Amendment, because the Republican Party was founded for racial equality. It was the reason we were created in 1856 and 1860, and then in the 1860s, the whole idea of being able to make sure the Second Amendment did apply. The 14th Amendment was specifically to make sure that blacks in the South, freed slaves, and white Republicans in the South could keep from getting lynched, because 25% of the lynchings that took place, 4,712 I think it was, were whites. They were white Republicans. And so when you were black in the South that had your firearm, you could defend yourself and keep from being lynched. And that's why Republicans are passionate about the Second Amendment. It goes all the way back to defending the rights of blacks to be able to vote and to live, frankly, when the racist Democrats were trying to kill them through the KKK, which was an arm, a political muscle arm of the Democrat Party. All of that's in the congressional record, by the way. Okay, I'm sorry I got off on a
No, there is no sorry, Rick. You got to do what you're passionate to speak about, and that's, I always assume it's God's anointing on the moment, because, you and I are trying in our own little baby step way as just one citizen after another to gather together and form a militia of the mind to fight back and do the best we can. But I spoke about truth in the beginning of the podcast, and the idea of immutable truth, the actual truth that exists, whether you're alive to understand it, whether you believe in it, whether you agree with it, irrelevant. There's either truth or there's not. And if there is, we need to find it, because that gives us our true north. That shows us how to get back on track. I've talked in some of our private conversations and others about even the Revolutionary War, and the fact that to be a truth teller, I think that sometimes we do need to make sure we speak of all of our history. We do bring up everything that is necessary to educate us, because we're not going to be able to move forward, especially during these dangerous times, if we don't have anything to look back on and say, hey, we have kind of been here before. How did we do it? What worked? What didn't work? So we kind of are wise. So we know that it wasn't, well, I'm not going to, every time I try to get specific figure-wise, you always correct me because this is your wheelhouse. But wasn't it true, even during the Revolution, that the majority of the colonialists, I guess they were called then, I don't know if they were Americans then yet, weren't for the Revolution? They were kind of the mask wearers who said, you know what, everything's good, everything, you need me to take a vaccine, I'm fine. Britain will take care of us, they always have. Let's not push buttons, let's not make any waves. Matter of fact, I might have to turn you in because I don't want my kids to be in the crosshairs of this. Why are you fighting our people? We come from this country. Okay, so.
And they did. They did turn in their neighbors.
Of course.
It was we were really split down the middle, to be honest. It was about 25% for the revolution, 25% against it, and 50%, kind of like what you're describing, didn't pay attention, didn't care. So you could really say 75% were not actively for it, at least. 50% in the middle, just kind of, not paying attention or didn't really care. But yeah, I mean, you had your own neighbors as Tories turning you in if you had anything to do with it. And as you can imagine, brother against brother sometimes. You had people in the same church congregation on both sides of this thing. And it took time. I mean, sometimes the pain had to be experienced in your own life. I think that's true today even. Like you had to experience the tyranny or the boot of government on your neck, shutting down your church or shutting down your business or whatever it might be before you finally woke up and said, wait a minute, this is not right.
Yeah.
This is not the America I thought I lived in, or back then this is not the colony that I thought I lived in. So yeah, that's a long answer to your question.
Well, but the reason I bring it up, and I'm glad you had those numbers, because 25% were all in. They were willing to.
And when I say that, that's 25% that supported it. Only 3% were all in. Only 3% that actually fought, or about 6% that did something, maybe served in the legislature or gave of their goods from their store, to the troops or whatever. So only about 6 to 7% is what they say actually participated. 25% that at least had moral support and involved. So I think that distinction is important too, because a lot of times we have people say I'm for it and they're not. We don't need the whole country. We don't need half the country. We need 5 or 6% to step up and say, I'll take action. I'll host a class. I'll run for office. I'll stand on the street corner with a sign encouraging people. I'm not sure where you were going with that, but that, in terms of numbers, that's what we need to really take.
Well, where I was going with that was like I said, is one of the things that I always try to do, as you know, is define words, use words appropriately so they're not manipulated and used to destroy us or to manipulate us or propagandize us, but in fact use it as ways to reach clarity and truth in reality. So what I was saying was, so if the very revolution that gave you and I this, whatever it is now, 250, 60, whatever years later, the freedom to sit here right now on this amazing technology and have conversations freely about America and even a insurrection, right, of American colonials against their country of origin, right, who had claim to this territory.
I think 246. I think that was our, I think that's right, 245, 246th birthday. Go ahead.
Okay, so 5%, 3% are all in. 5% are kind of wedded to do whatever is necessary and risk their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honors. There's another 20% that would kind of like coming up. I don't want to say anything, but I'm on your side. I'm with you. Yeah. So we got those guys, and okay, at least they were there. We had those who were the absolutely pro Britain. They would take anything they asked them to do. They would turn in anybody they asked them to do. And then you had the other 50% that were kind of like going, just leave me alone. I don't care if Britain runs it. I don't care if I don't want to lose my property. I don't want to lose my farm. I don't want my kids hurt. I just want to be left alone to live my life. But life doesn't work like that. Sometimes you got to take a stand for something, or you're going to not have anything.
That's right.
So, as I said earlier, we use history as a template, if we're wise, to try to see if we can glean something from this to apply to where we're at now. In some ways, things are different. There's a different technology that's available. There's different weapons, certainly, that are much more devastating than they could have imagined. There's lots of things. But we're at a place where we have an American public who are at loggerheads. They don't just disagree. They hate each other. They've made enemies out of those who disagree. And there are those of us like you and I who are willing to continue to hold the banner of Americana and its original intent and DNA. We have those who said, screw all of this crap, we're going, socialism is better, let's just do that. So what you and I are trying to reach are those 50% who are just kind of saying, I'm not really want to make one way or the other, just leave me alone, you guys figure it out. As long as I can get some food and a roof over my head, I'm fine. They don't have that permission anymore. We need their help because, as you said, the law is fine that the Supreme Court has re-emphasized and adjudicated our constitutional rights again, but those laws are meaningless if the federal government decided to send in a militia and shoot us. Those laws are meaningless if my neighbors decide to become Antifa and terrorists and begin to burn my home down because I was an independent or a conservative or a Christian. And if the federal government does nothing to defend me, let's say, for example, I was a Supreme Court judge.
Or worse, your local prosecutor does the opposite. They go after you.
Right.
Look what happened to the McCluskeys in St. Louis. I mean, yeah, so I hear what you're saying.
So what I'm saying is this. There is no more time to be a coward, for sure, but maybe more importantly, to be apathetic.
That's right.
You have to decide, do you not only want America, but maybe do a little soul searching. Do you deserve America? Because if you think that everybody's going to do all the work for you and you get to receive the spoils and bounty of that hard-earned work, I think you need to understand, no, you don't. No, you don't. Right. There's those of us who will fight and die, but we're not just going to give it to you because you weren't there when we needed you. So how do we encourage? Because it sounds like I'm maybe being a little too harsh, but I don't know what you do when you are at a Civil War-like frenzy and think that we can just act like it's going to magically heal itself without a game plan and then an expectation for people to get their butt in gear and start doing some damage. So how do we do that?
Man, I'm thinking of Thomas Paine. You know, he said those who wish to reap the blessings of liberty. I think that may not be the exact phrase, but those who wish to reap the blessings of liberty must, like men, meaning like adults, undergo the fatigues of supporting it. We should be teaching that to every living human being in America. We should constantly be saying, if you want freedom, you have to undergo the fatigues of supporting it. You have to be a part of the solution. It's not enough to just enjoy the blessings of liberty. You got to bear the burden. You got to put in some elbow grease. You got to put in some money, some time. Start donating to candidates. Start just like we talked about earlier, just little things. It's not that you have to give everything. You don't have to go die for freedom. We just want you to live the freedom that others have died for and give some of your time, just a little bit of your time, a little bit of your money, your sacred honor. Speak truth on social media when everybody's afraid to say what they actually believe anymore these days, or even speak truth. You see where that 3-star general lost his contract with the military because he simply said, "We're glad you now know what a woman is."
You're right.
I mean, we've all been thinking and saying exactly that. How can you not know what a woman is? And yet this guy gets reprimanded, a 3-star general. For not reprimanded, lost whatever the contract was. Anyway, I mean, you got to be willing to do that, though. You got to be willing to speak up and speak truth. That's when the nonsense will stop. When enough Americans stand up and speak truth, enough Americans start donating to good causes out there. And when I say good causes, I mean candidates. I mean the defense of some of these that have been abused by the FBI and others. You know, our friend Joey Lynn Massaros from San Marcos, that was part of the Trump train that they went sued these people that were just driving down the highway next to the Biden bus, did nothing wrong. They've had to spend $100,000 in legal fees defending them. It's just insane. Those people need our support, and so I think you're right. The people in the middle have got to get off the couch, get off the sidelines, and do something. One of these things that Brad and I are talking about. Hopefully you'll become a Constitution coach and host our classes, and hopefully you'll do a lot, but do something. If nothing else, if you don't have time to host a class, then donate $100 for somebody else to be able to host a class, or whatever you want to do your part. We've all got to do our part, Brad. This is no longer a time to be neutral. This is a time to be active.
That's what I'm saying. It's a call to arms, and I am excited to say that there are those of us who are doing the best we can, and maybe we're a little bit ahead of you in that we're at least finding some proactive ways to be effective, or at least think we're trying to do something, as opposed to nothing. But The exciting thing is, and I know there'll be a lot more information as things become more solid, but I wanted my people to know that now you are even taking your commitment beyond Patriot Academy, where kids can come for a week and understand the Constitution and our Judeo-Christian ethical standards and so forth, but are actually trying to move into a place where you can have a full-time brick-and-mortar campus that they can support. I don't know if you've set up a means to donate yet, and I'm not sure if it's going to be a 501c3, is it? Okay,
yeah,
good.
No, it's not. It's nonprofit, and absolutely. PatriotAcademy.com. There's a picture there of the campus. You can click on it and see the video of what the campus is going to look like. We now have our property. We're going to start building. I mean, this is huge, Brad. This is going to be ground zero for restoring liberty in America. Young people will come spend a full year with us, learning from guys like you and me and others. I mean, this is a really important step to building back a free nation, building back the walls, as Wall Builders talks about all the time. Arise and rebuild, that we may no longer be a reproach, is the scripture out of Nehemiah. And that takes money. And so, you can go on the website and donate. You can sponsor a big pavestone with your family name on it. It'll be right there at the entrance of the campus when you walk up to the mock-up of Independence Hall. So, it's a great way to give of your time, your money, and your sacred honor. Donate to the Patriot Academy campus.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted my people to sort of close with. They listen to you, they love you, they're big fans of yours, and I want you guys to share this segment with all of your Facebook people, your Twitter people, your Instagram people, whatever's out there. I can't keep up with whatever the latest, newest thing is, but the technology and the means for us to communicate is the single most important remedy, I think, to let people hear the other side of the story and to, as I always say, remember America. So that's really what we're about. Thank you so much, Rick, for spending time with me. I know you're a busy, busy guy, and you really are a true patriot who sacrifices a lot of time with your family and so forth, because you realize that time is drawing nigh, and we better get busy and do some damage for the kingdom while the getting's good. So God bless you, brother. I'm sure we will see each other soon live.
Sounds good. God bless you, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right, man. Thanks. Well, so there you have it. I love having Rick on, as you guys know. And you guys always love him. And listen, feel free to give some ideas of people you'd like to see as guests that I interview, and if I can get them, I will. There's a lot of people, like I said, that I have actually in a big old list. And all I'm waiting for is when I feel like our technology here has gotten so pristine and confident that we can not glitch it out, that I will go start bringing them in, and we're going to just continue to grow this thing into something that stands for God and stands for our country, stands for principle, stands for religious liberty, stands for freedom, stands for the ability to defend yourself, and the ability to just believe that there is something great about this nation. I don't worship it, worship God, but I'm just so grateful. I want to fight for it. I need your help. I'm going to be in Arlington August 7th. I really am going to ask you guys to help me. I know that many of you don't live in Texas, so you're like, what can I do? All right. If you know people in Texas, or if you can just share the fact that I'm going to be doing this show on the 7th in Arlington, it's going to allow me to try to show a proof of concept, and that is that Christian and conservative comedy that's edgy and dangerous, like I do, is something that people want to see. For, like Rick and I were saying, to be able to accomplish anything, to change America, we have to protest by putting our money where our mouth is and going to see things we believe in, to invest in things we believe in, like in Patriot Academy, and to this new building in this new area that land that he's going to raise up, so we can train the next generation. Because we're going to have to get kids out of the schools and start our brand new schools. Are going to have to be started because it's been overrun by communism and Marxism. So we're going to have to just start over. But we're willing to shoot for that. We need your help, your fellow Americans. You're not less important to us. You're equally important. We just need you to participate. Karen Boyd, Benjamin Gregory, both invested $50 gift, and I'm going to send them a gift to them, signed to them of the CD, the unique CD that will soon be gone and gone forever because I ain't ever doing CDs again. But for those who collect things like that interest them, this is going to be very unique because it ain't going to go be found anywhere else. But it was my original audio filmed concert, probably back in 90, I don't even know when it would have been. Mid-90s probably when I finally got that out into the atmosphere. So it's really interesting because you're going to see the beginnings of some of the routines that ended up on other albums. I've got 6 albums, but I didn't get everything on every album that I had written. So this has things like bumper cars and bumper stickers. It's one of my first opening lines in this routine. Grandma's perfume, talk to the animals, Francis Smelly, casserole, Merry Christmas, weather whiners, it's too hot, wearing makeup, Adam and Eve, God made us naked, toenails, bug rights activists, things we didn't know. So again, you've probably heard some of these routines, but they're on Put a Helmet On, the famous album Put a Helmet On. This preceded Put a Helmet On. So it was the beginning of who I was going to be as God's comic. Didn't have that name yet. 2004 I was given that name from New Yorker magazine during when they put out an article on me. I want to do these live events. I want to do more events with Rick, the Comedy Constitution Tour. I'm going to be doing some events with Jonathan Chiliafaro, my opera friend, called The Spirit of America. That's going to be a live event. We're going to continue to grow this as a movement of a militia of the mind to defend our country and our religious and civil liberties and the humanity that comes with being American. So we have to fight Marxism. That's what we're at. We are in civil war. It's real. I don't care if you don't believe it. I don't care if you think it's rhetoric. I don't care if you think it's paranoia. This is where we're at. So you either want to participate and join or you don't. But you're going to get exactly what you invested in. If you don't help and things go south, you have yourself to blame. If you helped and things go south, you can go down like a warrior. And that's what I want to do. Wyatt, as we wrap up, what do you think? Do you think that there's anything I left out today? Because to me, this was one of the greatest podcasts maybe we've ever had. I don't know if I can be beaten, son.
I mean, listen, wait until next week. I'm sure I'll find some other glitch to cause in the stream.
Listen, I want to tell you something. Whenever a glitch gets confused, it calls Wyatt and says, can you help me out here? That's how good he is at glitching things up. Or as I like to say, Fauciing things up.
You've never said that.
I say it in my comedy. It's part of my new comedy, a comedy routine. I have a big hunk about the coronavirus. Listen, I love that you guys show up every Monday. I'm excited. I'm humbled, and I appreciate what you're doing. By the way, if you didn't want the CD, but you do believe in what I'm doing and you want to continue to donate to help, you can do that too. Just let them know. It's a 501c3 tax deductible because it's a ministry that I have to fight for freedoms and liberties. If you believe in that and think voices like mine should exist, it's kind of unique, then you can help make it happen. But please, help me get the word out for Arlington the 7th. Let's see if we can sell that place out. It's 700 tickets, so it's a lot. But let's see if we can sell that out and just show the country that conservatives will not be shut up. Christians will not be shut up. Patriots will not be shut up. Originalists will not be shut up. We are going to fight, and we're going to do it with a militia of the mind. I will be back next week, and hopefully we might even have some of our glitches worked out through the week so that I can have another guest on that would be interesting and fun. Let me know anything you like or don't like about what I'm doing. Let me know if this is on to something and if it's still bearing fruit, and I will be grateful, God willing, to come back here next Monday and once again continue to lift up God and country, tear down political correctness. Remember, PC-free is liberty. And I'm fighting the good fight, and I need you to go along with me. So, this is God's Comic, Brad Stine, signing off and saying all I'm doing is putting the woke back to sleep. God bless you. See you next week.